Hello, hello, and welcome back to another car conversation. I hope everyone is doing well. The weather's kind of nasty here today, so I decided to record inside. Sorry, I'm distracted. There's always some new breaking news coming in, so I was checking it out on my phone. What I want to talk about is last night. Yeah, that thing that happened last night in the Capitol. So, the state of democracy. Let's talk the state of democracy. And in what we heard last night, what you should be focused on in regards to the plethora of things that were said and lies that were told. And then, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? Because we as Americans only have ourselves to depend on. There are only 215 Democrats in Congress, and they're still human. At the end of the day, they are still human. They were elected. And just because a person is elected does not make you a leader. It makes you popular, it makes, says that people like you, and you said some great things, but it doesn't necessarily make you a leader. So this whole depending on, just Democrats to do everything and waiting for a leader to pop up, we don't have time for that. We just don't have time for that. The urgency is now. It is now. So let's talk about some of the things that we heard last night. First of all, I heard a lot of doom and gloom again. Heard a lot of murder, rape, stealing, pillaging, fear mongering. There was a lot of that. There were people there that had definitely endured some very tragic events and incidences in their lives, whether it happened to them personally or they lost a child or someone close to them was impacted. But a lot of, so I want to say that first. I do feel for those people, but the way their stories were used was extremely performative. Let's take, for example, the young boy who I think his name is JD, I think, or JC. So he's been battling cancer for years, and Felon 47 made a spectacle out of, giving him some honorary membership to the Secret Service or the CIA. And I believe that he's already received this honorary membership to a police department in Texas. But here's the thing. You're doing this for this child, and you're going on about his battle with cancer, when at the same time, simultaneously, you are killing cancer research. You've completely stopped funding for cancer research at the same time. Cancer research, Alzheimer's, I believe diabetes as well, dementia. Like, you're over here cutting off programs that could possibly, potentially help this young man and giving him some honorary membership when his health is on the line and millions of people's health is on the line. So that's what I saw in that moment. It was so performative. And this little kid is so happy and excited because apparently all he's ever wanted to be is a police officer. But what really should matter, the health of this child, just out the window. Just out the window. So it just made no sense. And then you heard a lot of terminology like invasion and savages over and over again when he was talking about migrants and people immigrating to this country, well, those of from a certain areas and of a certain color, skin tone. They were getting all the savages all over the place and prison gangs, and they're going to come and murder and rape and have total control over our nation, is what he said. So he's signed an executive order to label these prison gang savages out of Venezuela as foreign terrorist organizations. Now, number one, I want you to hear me loud and clear. Executive orders are not law. They are not codified into law. That is why whenever you have one president go out and the next one comes in and clears out all the stuff that the previous president did, that's because they were only executive orders. So remember how upset we were with Joe Biden in regards to the George Floyd Policing Act, signing the George Floyd Policing Act, or getting that through Congress, excuse me, versus Biden doing an executive order, is because we wanted it codified into law. Same thing with voting rights. Any changes to voting rights, you want to make sure that's codified into law. So this is an executive order that can easily be rolled back, but I mean, it will only be rolled back if and when this administration changes and it's changes to Democrats. Because I doubt very seriously anybody coming after Felon 47 is going to be able to win being more relaxed on immigration. Let me put it that way. He also said that police officers, he's going to make it a mandatory death penalty for anyone who takes the life of a police officer. There's many ways. Now, I'm not saying I want any police officer to lose their life. I don't want anybody to lose their life. But there's many ways in which this could happen, and it's not intentional. It's there's a lot of different scenarios that were running around in my head, and I'm like, you're making this a mandatory death penalty just across the board, and we don't have any. So, and then you also notice that he repeatedly asked Congress to pass things or said things and said, and I encourage you to, or hope you will pass it. Again, we have three very distinct, separate branches of government, and they are to serve as checks and balances on each other. So you can't have one instructing the other as to what to do consistently and constantly. And that is where he's trying to take this. And quite honestly, that's where Republicans are willing to go. At least that's what Republicans in Congress are showing us, that is where they're willing to go. That is why I continuously call these people weak, feckless followers. So again, I reiterate, there are a lot of people that are elected to a lot of things that aren't necessarily leaders. They just won the popular vote. People like them. They have the likability. They say a lot of nice things, but that doesn't make them a leader. And clearly we have a lot of followers, not leaders, that are part of the Republican Party. So he said that about this whole police officer thing. He brought up the tax incentives or tax breaks. And he said for everybody, but please hear me. Hear my voice right now. There will be no tax breaks for anyone making it's somewhere between $350,000 to $400,000 a year. So if you are not making that, your taxes are going to increase. There will be no tax break for you. The tax cuts that he and Elon Musk and Doge are trying to find money for, that is for the billionaire class. That group of 800 people that I talked about in the last video, that's who those tax breaks are for. So they want to renew that tax break that they got through the first time he was in office, it comes up for renewal this year. And that's why they're really pushing and cutting and laying people off and cutting programs to shore up funds to justify this tax break for the wealthy 1%. And if you're watching this video, more than likely you are not part of the wealthy 1%, because I don't know, maybe you are watching the video, because the wealthy 1%, they tend to have a lot of time on their hands, because the rest of us, the working class, the labor class, we're the ones running around working. They're golfing, they're taking ski trips. It's us that's doing all the work. So it will not benefit you, is my point. But he laid it out as there are going to be tax breaks for everyone. And then, so there are a couple of things I wanted to say on this note as well. So that whole little $5,000 they floated that they're going to send out to everybody, that was some bullshit. Y'all not getting that money. Y'all not getting that. You're not getting any tax breaks. So there's that. What else did I want to say? Oh, he named some land after another young lady who apparently was a victim of sexual assault somewhere between Galveston and Houston. Again, I feel for all these people. If you watch me long enough, you know that I'm a survivor of sexual assault as well. So I'm not trying to make light of anyone's situation. However, I've never once thought, I wish somebody would name a piece of land after me. Or maybe this mother, I believe it's a mother, and I believe the land is going to be named after her daughter. Maybe that's a nice way to commemorate. I don't know. It's so much of this was so performative to me, and I don't want to be seem insensitive to any of the parents that were there and any of the people who had suffered greatly. I don't want to seem insensitive. However, I just feel like it was used. These people were being used. It felt gross to me that they were just being used because this was all performative. Again, sociopaths do not have empathy. They do not have the ability to care for others, no matter what happened to you. All he cares about is himself. So that was just a whole performance for you sitting at home who watched it, and also the people that were in the Senate, were in the Capitol last night. So there was this huge emphasis on trans people, when that's a very small number of trans people that are playing sports, whether they're playing sports. And then he brought up this whole there was a mother there that he said their child had been coerced or indoctrinated into wanting to be called a different name by the school. And that's just a segue into trying to build their argument to get rid of the Department of Education. You have to connect the dots on these things. So this whole emphasis on trying to scapegoat the trans community is to, number one, try to turn us against the trans community. And number two, this whole focus of it happening and this indoctrination happening through the school system is to build their argument for getting rid of the school system, getting rid of the Department of Education, and privatizing education so they can make money off of it. All of this is a money-making scheme. Whether you're talking schools, you're talking prisons, you're talking insurance, Social Security, they want to privatize. They want to find ways where they can make money off of everything that we depend on. So I'm going to skip to the chase. There was a lot of talk about trans. There was a lot of talk about migrants. Getting rid of the CHIPS program. The CHIPS program, bringing manufacturing of chips here in America was, number one, to help our economy, to help with jobs, and to also to help with our advances in technology, because we are far behind other countries. And then last night, that dude stood at the podium and said, we're getting rid of that program. And you know what, Mike Johnson, you can do whatever you want to do with the money that's in that program. So you're saying America first, but you're doing everything to take America back into the past to where we will never be first in this world. We will never be before China. We will never be before any other country in regards to their technological advances, because he's cutting programs, climate, green energy programs. He's cutting everything that would advance us as a country. So there was so much other stuff that I wanted to talk about. He literally talked about, we're just gonna have a period of time where you're gonna be uncomfortable. At the same time, as he's imposing tariffs on Canada, Mexico, China, and they are retaliating. And the Dow just plummeted because of this this talk of tariffs and this tariff war that he is building. He's initiating this. Our allies aren't doing this. But at the same time, he wants you to be comfortable with it. He wants you to be comfortable with, I went to the store today. 1 dozen eggs, $8. I'm going to tell you exactly, because I took pictures, because I'm like, this is unbelievable. I've been off eggs for months, and I'm only using eggs because that's the narrative that's perpetuated in media. Everything's going up. Every single thing is going up. But I'm going to use eggs. So I think this 2 dozen eggs, $14.24. Trying to give you exact prices. Now the brown eggs, the uncaged, cage-free eggs, $13.57. $13.57 for 1 dozen of cage-free eggs. Okay. And then I think the 1 dozen was around like $8. Hold on. Did I get a picture of that? Yeah, $8, $8.12. And he wants you to just be comfortable with that. I was watching auto manufacturer. I don't know if you saw this today, but he did at least roll back or pause. He paused the tariffs on automobiles for 1 month because the big 3 auto dealers, when the Dow crashed and he started this whole tariff war, they immediately called, into the White House and said, hey, I won't be able to function. I won't be able to sell my cars. So the big Dodge Ram would go from $80,000, which I didn't even know that damn truck cost that much. I was thinking like $40,000. Go from $80,000 to $100,000. And so I saw on a segment before I started filming this, there was a guy who owns an auto dealership. And he was saying, I just wrote a contract for one of those Ram trucks at $80,000. And then I knew I wouldn't be able to circle back to my customer and say, hey, well, you got to pay 100 today. Like everything. And they just want you to be okay with it. They're getting rid of jobs. They're getting rid of jobs, whether it is directly because you have a federal job. You have a lot of veterans who have come out that said that, they have lost their jobs. So whether it's federal jobs, veterans losing their jobs, whether that's through the VA or they were a federal worker, or you have people that are going to indirectly lose their jobs. Because if you just take the example I gave you with the auto manufacturers, if prices go up and they can't sell vehicles, layoffs are going to happen. I just talked to you about Starbucks. Layoffs are happening. Target is going to be next. I can't remember who else I just saw recently. And so all of this, I'm saying all this to say, everything that was talked about last night, what you saw was a show. You saw a production. You saw the worst reality television to ever air. Because what they wanted you to believe, what they were trying to sell you was a pack of lies. And all the sycophants in that room that were applauding, they represent you. And as long as you don't stand up and you don't say anything and you don't push them, they will continue to be the weak, feckless followers that they are, and they will do whatever this individual, Heritage Foundation, the machine behind MAGA, they're going to continue to do whatever they want them to do. So speak up, call your representatives before we all just end up one big jobless, homeless, sick, uneducated, freaking country, hungry country, because that's where we're headed. That is where we're headed. And you know what? Here's the last thing I want to say about this. You have to, again, I'm going to try to get you to connect the dots. If you have jobless people, if you have more unhoused people, if you have more hungry people, can't afford food, if you have people who can't afford this voucher system that they're pushing around this country in regards to education. So you have uneducated people, you have sick people because they don't have access to health care. If you have elderly people that not only lose their Social Security, but they lose Medicare. So they have no health care and they have no income. And you put all that together, you put that all together in one pot, it just makes us more vulnerable. And with vulnerability comes instability. So what's going to go up is more crime, more alcohol and drug use, more depression, more mental health issues, more people unaliving themselves, more sexual offenses. All of that's going to increase. That's where we are headed, along with a recession that doesn't seem like it's far away. So it's time for you to speak up and be loud and get involved, because collectively is the only way we do this. The only way.